Hi everyone, welcome to Stormwater Training here at Mapistry. We are still, it's just right at 3 o'clock, so we're waiting for everybody to get logged in. But while we wait, I want you guys to find the questions section on the GoToWebinar panel and use it to just go ahead and tell me where you're calling in from. Are you in your office today? Are you at home? Maybe you're on the road. So go ahead and test out that questions function and let me know where you're calling in from. Great. And then we'll probably wait one more minute. It looks like about half of our attendees are here right now, so we'll give some people a little more time to join in, but go ahead and tell me where you're calling in from. Okay, we got somebody at home. This is my home office that you see in the background. Julia's also at her home office. Okay, we got people calling in from the office. Great. Give it one more minute for people to keep trickling in here. Okay. Cool. Looks like we got a good mix. Some people in the home, some people in the office today. Well, I'm just thrilled that you guys are here for our annual stormwater training. You'll see Julia on the line with me. She's going to provide some technical support as I navigate this webinar so I can focus on you guys and make sure you're seeing what I think you're seeing. So Julia's here to keep me in line. You probably know her. She's a member of our solutions team here at Maplestreet. With that, we'll just jump right in. So I'm Courtney. I'm going to be your host today for stormwater training. My background is in civil engineering with a heavy focus in stormwater, BMP design, SWIP writing. And then here at Mapistry, I support our customer experience team, making sure you guys, if you have any questions kind of beyond the product about the ins and outs of your stormwater program, I'm here to help answer those, and Julia is also here to help answer those. And hopefully we cover a lot of it in today's training. The rest of the customer experience team, you should all probably know Maya. She's our VP of customer experience. Julia, I've already introduced. She's a fellow soon-to-be PE QISP here with a really strong knowledge in the stormwater regulation world. We also on the CX team have Celine. She's our customer success manager, and Carissa. And Celine and Carissa are there to help if you have any challenges using the software during the year. You can always reach out to them at help@mapistry.com. Some housekeeping before we kind of dive in to the webinar. There will be a recording of today's webinar. So if there's any members of your team that weren't able to make it yesterday or aren't on today, we will be sharing the recording of this webinar as well as the slides after the meeting. You are also encouraged to submit questions at any time throughout this presentation. If I can answer them live here, I will try and do that. If I can't, we will follow up with you in email afterwards. And then as part of the training, you should have gotten some handouts, which are also available in the webinar dashboard today. Those include a sign-in sheet. This is really important to make sure that you guys document your training. You want to have everybody fill out the sign-in sheet and then scan that or take pictures of it. And we're going to load it into the Mapistry documents section at the end of the training. So you can do that yourselves, or if you need help with that, again, the customer success team is here to help. There's also our new stormwater cheat sheet. This is great to just print and post in your office or post by your sampling kits. It's a reminder throughout the year of everything you're supposed to do to be in compliance with your general permit. And finally is a totally optional supplemental worksheet. The idea behind this worksheet is that if you can answer everything on this worksheet, you should be really good to go with your stormwater program. If there are questions on that worksheet that are still confusing, you're unsure at the end of this training, be sure to reach out to our team and we'll help make sure you understand what you're supposed to be doing at your site. With that, The agenda for today, we're going to just start with, why we all care so much about stormwater. We're going to talk about your best management practices and specifically what is required under the permit. We're going to talk about your inspection requirements, sampling, and what are qualifying storm events. We'll talk about your SWIP and how to make sure it's up to date. The reporting requirements and SMARTS, that state website where you send your reports to. Finally, we'll touch on exceedance reporting and litigation trends, and then we'll wrap it all up at the end. With that, I want to say welcome, and I do have a quick welcome video from Ryan, our co-founder. He can't be here today, but he wanted to say hi. So I'm going to play this quick welcome video from Ryan for you guys.
Hey all, thanks for attending the annual training today. Really appreciate you all showing up. Some of you have been customers since 2014, 2015. I really appreciate you all trusting us to provide a service to you that's critical for your business on the stormwater side, and also believing in using software to solve some of your stormwater program problems. And some of you all in the room are customers since 2015 when the permit first flipped over. And I remember going to a lot of your sites and training you in person and talking Bmps and different options and how to sample for TSS and iron and what do those results mean. So you're in good hands with Julia, Courtney, and the rest of the team. But really appreciate you all coming out. I think one of the things that I'm most excited about is how much our software has expanded and the value can provide in other parts of your environmental safety program. Stuff around baghouse, dust collector inspections, being able to pull analytics on that, being able to import and track data, water usage, groundwater sampling, those type of things. So if you've got any other applications in your program that you're still doing manually on digital forms or collecting it in a spreadsheet, reach out, and for many of you it's already included in your software licenses, and it may not cost anything to get set up. It may be a few $100s to set up other inspection forms. So think about what else you can digitize in your program. Thanks all for coming out today. Hey, well,
I just want to echo what Ryan said. One, we are thrilled you guys are here today for the training. And we're here to support your whole program. So if there are other things beyond stormwater that you want to talk to our customer experience team about, we're happy to have those conversations and see how we can bring more of your program into Maplestreet. With that, we will jump back into stormwater. So I just like to start here. These are those symbols that you see walking around. They're on the storm drains and the inlets in your neighborhoods, your cities, probably on your site. I see them, I don't know, everywhere I go. And I'm just thinking, they talk about no dumping on them and how we're not supposed to put anything into the storm drain. But a lot of what we're going to focus on today, because we all know you don't dump anything in the storm drain. What we're going to focus on today is all that stuff around your site that is exposed to storm water that gets carried to these storm drains, and how we start at the source to keep everything out of the storm drain. I always think about, I'm based out of the San Diego area, and we do these annual beach cleanup days. And every year, the largest pollutant by weight at the beach is, I'm gonna give you a moment to think about what it might be, but it is always cigarette butts, which if you're a smoker, you're probably thinking, I can't even smoke at the beach. Where do these cigarette butts come from? Well, they come from the streets and the gas stations and the parking lots and everything upstream of the beach, and they end up at the beach. So whatever lands on the ground, if it's there when it rains, it's headed to your rivers, to your beaches, and to your bays. So we want to stop it at the source. So what is stormwater? And why do we care so much? Stormwater is everything that starts in the sky as water. So whether this is snow, if you get snow at your site that melts and runs off, that's part of stormwater. So stormwater is everything that starts in the sky, rains down on your site, and leaves your site. And we care because it carries all of these pollutants to our, again, rivers, creeks, bays, and to the ocean. We also care because we have a legal requirement to care. Your sites are covered under a general permit, which is a legal agreement between your facility and the state to do what is right and stop pollutants from leaving your site. We've talked about it. We want to protect the environment. We all like being outside and enjoying these natural areas. We want to maintain brand reputation. It is really easy to end up with your company's name in the headlines for doing something to pollute those waterways. And finally, we want to mitigate financial implications, which may come from fines or from third-party lawsuits. So again, just to like drive this home, wastewater is anything inside your buildings. That's probably your, your sinks, your toilets. It's also probably anything that's undercover. If you have an area where you wash equipment off or wash trucks off and it's got an awning over it, there's a good chance that that is tied directly into the public sewer. Actually, I hope it's tied into the public sewer. Anything that goes through an on-site treatment system may go then to the public sewer system. We can also have treatment for stormwater, but if there's like a dedicated, if it's coming from inside, coming from somewhere undercover, there's a good chance it's going to the public sewer system. Anything outside your buildings where the rain is going to land on it, that rain picks up pollutants, and again, it goes straight out ultimately to the ocean here in California. So this general permit that you've heard me reference, this is required by, at the federal level, the Clean Water Act is the primary federal law in the United States governing water pollutions, with its goal to restore and maintain that chemical, physical, and biological integrity of our nation's waters. The federal level requires the states to enforce a general permit for your specific industry. So we've got a bunch of you on the call today. You're all from different industries, but you are all combined under the same general permit. So it's going to have a lot of like generic minimum BMPs that we're going to get into that are required for everybody, kind of regardless of what you're doing, to stop those pollutants at the source. And you heard me mention fines earlier. Well, regulatory enforcement fines under the Clean Water Act is $53,000 per violation per day. And everything you're going to hear me talk about today, when we talk about minimum BMPs, when we talk about inspections, each one of those can become a violation. So when we're thinking over $50,000 per violation per day, it adds up fast. So we want to be as proactive as possible. We want to go out to our sites tomorrow or the next day you're on site and really take a critical look at what's going on there and think about what you learned at today's training. And then there is citizens lawsuits. We have seen this, it has not slowed down since 2015. In 2015 here in California with the new permit, it made it a lot easier for citizens groups to get access to this data and to go after people for violating the general permit. We typically see settlement agreements, $50,000 to $2 million, and that's not even getting into the expenses and the legal expenses of bringing your facility back into compliance with the permit. So again, I hope after today's training, you all take a very proactive approach to your industrial general permit. So the first topic for today's training is going to be best management practices. And we're going to kick it off with a quick poll. We've got a group of you from different industries, and we're going to start with a quick poll about what have you found to be the most effective, I almost said expensive, most effective BMP. So let me launch that poll. Okay, so the early responders, I like where this is headed. I'm forcing you guys to pick one today. I'm sorry, you might be split in what you think, but this will be really interesting to have you guys just pick one today. So we've got about half the votes in. Let me see. It's all trending in the same direction, you guys. This is really interesting. I'm gonna give it 10 more seconds. I'm gonna close the poll and I'll share the results with you guys. We're gonna close it out. Share the results. Good housekeeping. I could not agree more. Is it showing you the results? Julia, can you see the results?
Yep, it is.
Okay, it's not, what I see is not what you see, I guess. Okay, good. Good housekeeping, yay. I'm so excited. So we are all like in alignment here that it all starts with good housekeeping. I think after that, training and good housekeeping kind of go hand in hand. You want things kept clean at your site and you want people to know what they're doing. The filters and the treatment BMPs are great if you have some like specific pollutants that you're targeting, like metals or nutrients. You might need something really specific to help you meet those NALs, but it all starts with good housekeeping. So let me navigate back to my presentation, which I lost. Hold on. Where did it go? Oh, there we go. Okay, I think we're back on the screen. There we go. Okay, so the general permit has 7 minimum BMPs. These are things you guys are all, oh,
I still see the poll.
okay. Five results. Why isn't it closing out of my poll, Julia?
Not sure.
Sorry, you guys.
If you stop sharing your screen and then.
There we go. We're back. This is why Julia's here with me today. Sure. Okay, so California, there are 7 minimum BMPs, as we talked about. You guys are all under that same general permit. We're going to go into the details on what these 7 minimum BMPs are over the next slides. So just know you guys are supposed to be doing all of this and all of the time. Then there are also advanced BMPs, which you may have implemented at your site. Those include exposure minimization, containment, discharge reduction, treatment controls, and there's a whole slew of proprietary BMPs that you may have implemented at your site. So good housekeeping, we're just talking about keeping your site looking good, cleaning up the trash, putting things away, and having a plan in place to stay on track of that. What the permit specifically says is you need to regularly observe all of your outdoor areas with industrial activities. So this is your monthly dry weather observations, as well as, you know, just what you see on a day-to-day basis. You need to minimize or prevent material tracking. So if you've got loose materials at your site that can be tracked around the site, you've got to have measures in place to minimize that. Similarly, minimizing dust. If you are rinsing, washing things off, you want to make sure that water is going to its designated area. Specifically, like if it's going to a evaporation pond or to some sort of sewer connection, you want to make sure your rinse and wash waters are going where they're supposed to. You want to cover all of your stored industrial materials that could be mobilized by rain. You want to contain materials and waste at all times. You want to prevent, again, that rinse water or anything from entering the storm drain system. If you have non-industrial areas at your site, you want to divert the runoff from that industrial area, from that non-industrial area, away from the industrial area. The idea is once it enters that industrial area, it's part of your industrial discharges. And finally, you want to minimize any authorized non-stormwater discharges. You're supposed to eliminate unauthorized, but also minimize the authorized ones. And we'll go into what is authorized and unauthorized later. The next minimum BMP is preventative maintenance. With this one, this is about having a schedule for your equipment, making sure you're not letting your equipment like degrade to the point where it's like regularly leaking. that you have a process in place to check these equipment, to make sure you are following any like manufactured routine maintenance requirements for these, and as well as having a system in place to get anything cleaned up properly. So we start with the preventative maintenance. We want to make sure none of our equipment is leaking, and then we want to, the next minimum BMP is going to be spill and leak response. So again, so you want to first start and make sure like none of your equipment is being neglected or leaking. And then when you do have those leaks or spills, you want to respond to them promptly. You want to make sure that you always have materials on place in place to respond to those spill kits or those spills. This includes like regularly checking your spill kits to make sure somebody didn't turn it into a trash can, and make sure the spill kit is still intact. And you want to make sure you have the right types of materials for the types of spills you expect to see. So you want to make sure you are staying on top of that spill and leak response program at your facility. And then material handling and waste management, and this one's going to take up 2 slides because it covers a lot. But basically what you have to do is anything, again, that could be picked up by rain and taken off site. That's what we're always focused on. Anything that can be picked up by rain, taken off site, we want to minimize the handling of it during rain events. We want to make sure any non-solid or waste materials are contained and in an area that wouldn't contact stormwater. You need to cover all of your industrial waste disposal containers when they're not in use. And again, you want to divert runoff away from any stockpiled material. So if you have areas where you're storing, if you've got metal storage or anything outside, you want to make sure you're kind of bermed it up and keep the stormwater from running right through it. You want to be sure, again, to clean up spills as soon as they occur. And you want to observe and clean as appropriate any outdoor material or waste handling equipment that could contain industrial materials or waste. So we want to take a really critical look at what's going on site. A lot of times where I see problems are these kind of like neglected areas, these things that you are meaning to have hauled off site and they just kind of pile up, like they're called boneyards. And those are technically wastes because they have no purpose at your site anymore. So they need to be covered, or even better, they need to leave your site quickly. So if you've been putting off getting anything, hauled away, taken off your site, I really challenge you to go tackle that in this upcoming, or tackle it next week. Erosion and sediment control. If you have 100% paved site, like great, you are meeting that requirement. If you have dirt lots at your site, you need to provide stabilization for inactive areas. And this is a term that they've thrown into the industrial permit. It really kind of comes more from the construction permit, but it basically means if you're not changing what that looks like, if this is not a mining operation or a grading activity, it's an inactive area and it's required to have some form of stabilization. You also want to make sure you have effective perimeter controls to stop any sediment or pollutants from leaving the site. If you have these open dirt areas, you want to divert runoff away from them. We don't want to promote additional erosion by having water run across these dirt lots. And then finally, if you have sediment basins at your site, you want to make sure they are in compliance with the design standards of the permit. So up here we've got this like dirt lot. Probably needs like a, you can do just like a nice water, keep it compact, make sure you're not seeing any wind come off of it, make sure you're not seeing a lot of sediment leave it. This one down here, usually I'm like really hoping there's like a witch's hat or something in that inlet. Probably want something around the sides too to stop any sediment from coming into it, because that witch's hat's not gonna hold up under a heavy rain event there. Finally, training. While you're all here today, training is one of our 7 minimum BMPs. You want to make sure that everybody on your team who has a role in stormwater has been properly trained. Also, It's really great if they read the SWIP or look at your SWIP map and know what is going on at your site. You want to make sure if they are doing the stormwater sampling that they know where the sample materials are, as well as where your outfalls are. And we're going to talk about how you use the site map to kind of communicate all of this as part of training when new people come on. You want to provide training on a regular schedule, and then you want to maintain documentation of completed training. So again, we said we sent out that sign-in sheet. If you can have everybody who participated in today's training sign that, and make sure you're saving a copy of that so you know who received training. We also know who showed up today, so we can help answer that question too if you need to know who from your facility showed up today. And then finally, the last minimum BMP is the record keeping and quality assurance. And so this involves all these things, your monthly inspections, your sampling, your comprehensive evaluation, your annual report. All of that is part of your documentation, and all of those records need to be maintained for 5 years. In Maplestreet, if you're keeping them in Maplestreet, they're going to be there for you for 5 years, probably beyond. If you want us to stop at 5 years, like reach out, but we'll probably just keep everything while we keep everything for you unless we hear otherwise. So you have your records in Mapistry. You also have records that get submitted to SMART. SMARTs will maintain them for you. You can pull them off of SMARTs as well. And then you also want to have like procedures in place for kind of reviewing those. When your sample data comes in, you want to just make sure you look at it before you submit it. And make sure everybody's kind of staying on track with what they're supposed to be doing and what you expect these reports to say. Finally, let's see. Oh, interesting. We got a question. Hal wants to know about BMPs for brand new asphalt. Oh, we can maybe talk offline. That is a challenge, and asphalt will continue to like leach out for a long period of time. There are, you could do oil socks around the inlets, but yeah, Hal, if you want to have a conversation with Julia or I later, we'd be happy to talk to you. So there are, so now we've covered the minimum BMPs, what everybody is supposed to be doing at their site every day. Minimum BMPs they don't care about whether it's raining or not. You have to have your minimum BMPs in place. Then structural control measures. So these are things that you can do like above and beyond to make sure, and then also maybe as a response to exceedance levels. And so these include things like exposure minimization. So we've got stuff sitting out here. The idea would be to put everything away so that you are reducing the opportunity for it to come into contact with stormwater. We also have treatment systems and treatment basins. So if you have these on your site, they require annual maintenance. So, the sediment basin, if it's doing its job, it's filling up with sediment over the course of the year. So you need to make sure you come in regularly, definitely like late, usually like July, August, and clean it back out before the next rainy season. If you have a treatment system at your site, you want to make sure you're following the vendor's recommended schedule for maintaining the chemicals and the media that is in that treatment system. You don't want to be surprised by a high value in your sample results because you forgot to maintain your treatment system. Let's see, and then the site map. So the site map, you have your site map in Mapistry. It's going to show you where your outfalls are, where your pollutant sources are, where your BMPs are, and it's considered a living document. So we're going to talk about how to keep your site map current in Mapistry. I've got a quick product guide video for you, courtesy of Carissa. So I'm going to tee that up right now. Oh, shit.
Hello, in this video we will be taking a look at the map dashboard. We're currently in the site dashboard where you can see your environmental Clients tab, and the list of sites that you are attached to. In order to view the map of the site that you're currently in, you want to click on the map icon at the left-hand side of your screen. Once you do so, you'll see a map in the center of your screen, and then you'll see a list of layers and maps on the left-hand side. To toggle between maps, you'll want to just click on the name of the map that you'd like to see. I'm going to head into the stormwater map, and now we see a lot more features that are turned on. On the left-hand side, on your list of layers, you'll see white and gray layers. Something just fell, sorry. To turn on and off these layers, you'll just want to click on the name. White means that it is currently showing, and gray means that it is not currently showing, or there are no features within that layer. On the bottom of the page, you'll see your legend, and then on the right-hand side, this is where you'll be able to add any new features or edit existing ones. Let's say that you have a new discharge location for your site, and you would like to add that to the map. We'll come over here and click on the marker icon, and then your mouse will look like this. You'll want to just indicate where this new discharge location point is by clicking it on the map, and then you will select which layer this is for. This is currently going to be for the discharge locations layer, and it's going to autofill with SP3 because we have SP1 and SP2. I'm going to go ahead and click Save, and this point will now appear on the map. If we would like to edit any of these points, specifically the discharge location if one moves, or a potential pollutant if that also changes locations, we'll want to click on the Edit Features icon, and this will turn everything pink so that you know you're in editing mode. You can move around any of the labels and any of the symbols / any of the white boxes. Once you are done editing the location of these points, you want to click Save, and it will save your changes. One thing I would like to note specifically for the discharge location layer and the potential pollutant layer is that these features are actually tied to the forms on your dashboard. These are tied through tags, and you can find these tags by either clicking on the label and then going to the layer details, or you can find the layer in the list of layers and click on the pencil. This will show you the name of the layer, and then it will show you what form tags it has. This layer has the discharge locations tag, which brings in all of the features into the form on your dashboard, which means that if you go to the sampling observation form, you'll see the names of SP1, SP2, and SP3. So these are important if you have a new layer, if you have a new discharge point, you want to add it to the map first and then go ahead and add it to the form. If you want to change a name, you'll also do that through the map. For potential pollutants, you'll do the same thing, except it has a potential pollutants tag. Now that your map is ready to be downloaded, you'll want to look at this little sidebar next to the Layers tab and click on this download icon. You can change the format of the PDF by clicking on landscape or portrait. I like to do tabloid / landscape because it gives a really good view. Once you have the perfect view of the map that you'd like to download, you'll click on download, and then it will download as a PDF that you then can just add to your SWIP. To toggle back to the map, just hit cancel.
Okay, great. So as things change on your site, you want to make sure you're revisiting your site map and updating your BMPs. And then like Chris was talking about, those BMPs also show up in your Maplestreet inspection forms. If you need help navigating any of the software, again, reach out, help@maplestreet.com. We're gonna continue on now. The next section we're gonna talk about is how to conduct that monthly inspection. So you always do your monthly inspection on a dry day, but you want to ask yourself, what if it were raining right now? We want to be thinking about what could the water be coming in contact with and carrying off of my site. Okay, so our next quick poll, and I do hope the software cooperates more this time, is I want to know who does the inspections at your facility. So I want to know if you do these, if you on the call are the one that does the inspections, if it's somebody else from your team doing the inspections, or if you need to check and get back to me on this. Cool. Okay, we're gonna give another maybe 5 seconds for any final responses. Okay, I'm gonna close this out and let me share the results with you real quick. Yay, none of you need to get back to me on this. You guys are doing better than yesterday's group. So for those of you on the call that are doing these yourself, I hope you know this is a good refresher for what you're doing every month anyway. And then for those of you with a team member who does them, now you know, now you'll know what that team member is should be doing every month. Okay, now, yay, went back to my screen this time. Okay, so your monthly observations, the obvious, we do them every month. We do them during daylight hours, we do them during facility operating hours, and we want to do them on a dry day without precipitation. The reason behind the daylight hours and the dry day is because you need to see the ground. Like, you need it not obscured. Even like if you show up and there's like heavy fog mist, the ground is damp from that like fog the night before, it's not a great time to do your inspection. You want to be able to see what is on the ground, because if the ground's all wet, you're not going to see if there's you know, staining from an unauthorized discharge or spilled material that still needs to be cleaned up. And we also want to do them during facility operating hours, and this is so that you're not getting a really skewed view of what is going on your site. Like if you show up and you do your monthly inspection, you know, 30 minutes before operations begins, like, yeah, it's easier to walk around the site, but you might be missing like how disgusting the site gets during the day. I've been to some sites where if I'm there before business really starts, it looks great, like there's nothing wrong. But if I'm there like while they're working, it's scary. At least for me as a stormwater expert, it's a little scary. So you want to make sure you're doing it while people are working so you get that clear picture of what is going on at your site. Also, if you do them outside of business hours and you're recording that, it might bring into question like, what are your operating hours and is your slip right? So it's a slippery slope. You want to do them during facility operating hours, during daylight hours, and again on those dry days, because you want to get that clear picture of what is going on at the facility and what could be contributing to pollution in our stormwater. You're going to inspect all of your industrial processes and storage areas for that potential to pollute. And again, if you're doing this when nobody's working, it's really hard to tell what has potential to pollute. You're going to look for BMPs that require maintenance. So if you've got check dams or filter socks, any of those types of BMPs at your site, you want to look to see like, hey, are they still in good condition? Do they need to be maintained? Do they need to be replaced? Like, are they even working? Do I need to try something different? And then you're also going to be on the lookout for these non-stormwater discharges. So non-stormwater discharges come in two forms. The first is authorized. Authorized still must be minimized. We don't want stuff, even clean water, leaving the site. If it is authorized, it has to be a clean source of water, no pollutants in it, and you have to identify it in your SWIP. So if you've got clean hose water discharging someday because they didn't turn it off when they were done washing something down, that's not an authorized discharge, even though it's clean, because you never identified it in your SWIP. So you want to, again, know if you do have authorized discharges and minimize those. And then anything else is unauthorized. This is anything leaving your site with pollutants in it, or really anything leaving your site at all that hasn't been clearly identified in the SWIP as an authorized source of non-stormwater. So when you're walking around the site, you're looking for, you know, trying to identify those pollutants. You want to, your inspection form should have a list of like, known pollutants, what you expect to see at the site. And then again, if you're seeing something else that's not on your form, we can, you want to update your map and update your form and be sure you've added that to your list of for future inspections. And again, I hit on this, but I'm the person that like calls the city if I see a non-stormwater discharge. So it's something I care too much about. But that is, again, we want to just stop everything from leaving the site. Like really, if you have fire system flushing and it has to leave the site, you identify it in your SWIP. If you have AC condensate, you can put a potted plant under it, but you could also document it in your SWIP as an authorized source of non-stormwater discharge. And then anything dirty is definitely unauthorized. Anything you haven't previously identified would also be considered by the state to be unauthorized. So now we're going to hear from Celine, who's going to talk to us about that monthly visual observation form and how you complete it in Mapistry.
Now let's take a look at your site dashboard. We're on the Mapistry Stormwater demo, and we're going to look for the Stormwater Routine Observation. If this observation is overdue or upcoming, you can find them in your Action Items section, and then you can click into them by clicking on the title. You can also find it by scrolling down and finding the widget, or by searching in the search bar at the top. Once you find your widget, click on the month you'd like to complete the observation for. So let's click into September. This will take you to your inspection form, and you'll see all of your inspection items on the left and then all of your information on the right. It'll auto-populate with the current date and time as well as the current weather. You can change the date and time by clicking on these icons on the right, and then you can change the weather manually by typing it in. You'll want to add your signature, and then if there's anybody else, they can come in here and add their signature as well to this inspection form. Once this is done, we can either click Next Section or manually click into the next section to continue on. If you see any potential pollutants, such as trash or oil sediment, click Yes, and a couple more questions will appear. Identify what you observe, so maybe we see trash and debris, and then add any deficiencies. So trash around the dumpster. I'm going to copy this because I'm going to use this in the task I create. And then I'm going to add a task description. The task title and the task description can be the same if you need to, but anything with this red required next to it needs to be completed. So I'll add an assignee, say myself. If you have any subtasks, like you need a new dumpster or there's something else that needs to be fixed, just click yes to add another subtask. Create a due date. So let's say next week. Add any other deficiencies or notes here, and then add any attachments. These can be photos or documents. So we're going to put a photo of the trash that needs to be cleaned up. You can add any notes at the bottom here as well. Since this is all complete, we're going to click Next. You'll see that a green check mark has appeared here, and that means that section is complete. If everything else looks good, you can either continue by clicking Next or clicking into the next section. Now let's jump into the non-stormwater discharge section. You'll see that there's one question at the top. If there is no non-stormwater discharge, continue on as normal. If there is, you'll click yes and some more questions will appear. Go through all these questions if there is non-stormwater discharge. If not, just leave it as is and continue on. Now we're in the best management practice section. You'll want to click into this section and identify any deficiencies you observe related to your BMPs. If none, continue on as normal. We're going to click through all of these and just stick on that last trash and debris pickup. We already had one task for trash and debris, but we're going to add one more task here as well. So let's say the dumpster needs to be closed. You can add a task. Create a description. Assign it to anybody on your site. Add a due date. And then add a photo. Once we're done doing that, we can click into this section. If there's any other non-compliance issues, we can add it here, or we can leave it blank. When you're all done, press save. It'll tell you if you missed any sections. So you'll want to click into that last section, press save again, and you'll see green check marks throughout your whole inspection form. Exit, and you'll see that now there is a stormwater routine observation that has been completed for the month of September.
And so just wanted to point out also that all of this is available on our mobile app too, so you can do your stormwater inspections from a mobile app or tablet. And then as well, if you have additional users at your site, Maplestreet does come with unlimited users, so you can add them through the users tab on Maplestreet. And if you need help with that, let us know. And then we're going to go into stormwater sampling. When you sample, you're going to sample during a qualified storm event. And we're going to go over what that definition is. So first, it has to start with a 48-hour dry period before discharge from any drainage area. It's a pretty specific requirement. And then it has to produce discharge. It has to leave your site for it to be a qualified storm event. You know, here in Southern California, we get a lot of rain that oftentimes doesn't go anywhere. That is not a qualified storm event. You don't need to scrape the rain off of your pavement and send it in for a sample. It has to freely, willingly leave your site to be a qualified storm event. And then once it does start leaving your site, you want to get that sample within the first 4 hours of discharge. This is if it starts discharging during facility hours. And then it's super complicated. If it begins discharging within 12 hours of the opening of your facility, then you have 4 hours from the opening of your facility to sample that event. So like if it started sometime overnight while you were asleep, it's probably safe to go ahead and sample during that first 4 hours of the next day. And then finally, if you have contained stormwater, so if this goes into a pond and you have to drain that pond for some reason, or it goes into a tank and you have to drain that tank, and you're sending it again off-site, not hauling it away for disposal, but sending it off-site, that's going to be a qualified storm event. You're going to sample that as contained stormwater at the time you start discharging that contained stormwater. You want to sample, it's 4 times a year, but again, it's very specific. July to December, 2 times. After that, you can stop. And then again, January to June, you're going to get it 2 more times. So like things that I see kind of get messed up are people take all their samples before January. So you took 4 samples July to December. Well, you've just now got 2 extra samples. You still got to go sample January to June. If you're kind of watching how you're trending on those NALs and you're making BMP improvements, you are welcome to grab, you know, a 5th sample to try and bring that average down. It's a choice you can make kind of based on what you're doing at your site, but the requirement is 4 samples, 2 during that first half of the year and 2 more during the second half of the year. So what do you sample? Everybody samples for TSS, oil and grease, and pH. And then you may have SIC code specific pollutants or pollutants that were identified during a pollutant assessment. And you'll see a list of your known pollutants at your site on your Mapistry dashboard. Where do you sample? You want to sample where the stormwater leaves your site. Again, if it's in a pond and not leaving your site, don't scoop that pond water out. Wait till you discharge it. And then it's also a good practice, maybe once a year during a rain event, to just kind of walk the perimeter of your site and make sure there's no surprises. The water's not leaving anywhere else. If you have a lot of discharge locations, your SWIP may describe what's called representative sample reduction, which says basically, hey, all these discharges are the same, so I'm going to sample this one. And then when do you sample? Again, that first 4 hours of water leaving the site, or first 4 hours after the start of business, if the rain started the night before. To collect samples, you want to make sure you're prepared. So this is the time to get prepared. I'm not sure if any of you maybe already taken your first sample this year. We had some rain where I'm at. It was kind of overnight, probably outside of facility hours. So you guys may have taken one sample already. You may be getting ready to take your first sample. You want to make sure you have everything ready to go. You want gloves, you want your lab bottles, you want your chain of custodies. If you're using pH paper, check that expiration date. If you are using a pH meter, you want to be prepared to calibrate it before your sampling event. And if you're sampling for anything with where the bottle has a preservative in it, make sure to get fresh bottles from your lab. And then you're going to keep track of it all in your records section. So Maplestreet, we're going to put the data into Maplestreet for you. We also will put copies of your PDF results and chain of custodies into Maplestreet, into the documents section. You want to make sure your labs are sending the data to lab@maplestreet.com. And then finally, you're going to be doing these visual observations. So a sample always has to have a visual observation along with it, where you say, like, what, did it smell funny? Did it look funny? Is it a weird color? So you're gonna be doing a visual observation with each sample that you take. And with that, we're gonna hear from Celine again. So Celine's first gonna talk about how to do that sample observation form in Mapistry. And this sample observation form is critical because it is, one, the way you communicate to us that you took a sample, and then we're on the lookout for that second piece, that sample data in Mapistry, and ultimately, you know, wanting you to get that certified into the SMARTS state reporting website within the 30-day requirement. So with that, I'm going to jump over and we'll hear from Celine talking about our mobile app.
I'm going to walk you through the sample observation form. This form can be completed on the mobile app or on the web app, but for this example, we'll focus on the mobile app. You can download Mapistry's mobile app from any Apple or Android app store, and you'll just use your normal credentials to log in. You'll be taken to this first page where you'll see your site's name. If you have multiple sites, you'll see those names listed below as well. Click into your site and you'll be taken to your site's dashboard. So you'll see all of your action items as well as any other inspections. I'm going to search for our sample observation form. This form is separated into two different sections. You have the July through December section and then the January through June section. I'm going to click into the July through December section. I'm going to click on inspection 1 because I'm doing my first inspection for this part of the year. This is my inspection section. I have all my section headers here, and then I can do this caret to see any additional subsections I have. Click on one of the names to just jump right into the form. It'll auto-populate with the current date and time, which is awesome because that means you can take this app out and do your inspections while you're sampling during a qualified storm event. But if you do need to change it, just click on the date or the time to change that. Add your signature and press save and continue. You can change your pH method by clicking on that caret. So if we wanted to click pH meter, we can change it to pH meter and add the calibration date and time. But for this one, we'll stick to litmus paper. We'll press save and continue. We're going to be taken to our first sample location. So SP-1 is our first sample location. It'll, again, auto-populate with the current time, but by clicking on it, you can change it. So maybe we did it a little earlier. You can add your pH. So for this one, my pH is going to be 8. And then you can conduct your observation. So do you smell any odors? Do you see any floating materials? Go through this list and press yes if you do see anything that is selected no for. So if I see trash and debris, I'll select yes. And then I'm going to take a photo of my litmus paper. So I have my makeshift litmus paper here. I'm just going to take a photo of it and add it to my inspection form. You can always update the photo's name and add a description, but for this example, we'll just save and continue. Let's say it's only discharging from one sample location. To remove the next sample location, I'm just going to hit this trash can. It'll say, are you sure you want to delete? We're sure, so we're going to press delete. And I'm going to move on to my next section. So this section is focused on non-stormwater discharge. If you have any non-stormwater discharge, select yes, and then some additional questions will appear which you can click through. I'm going to go back to saying no. I'm going to press save and continue. And now we'll see any other non-compliance issues. If we're all good here, we can just press save and continue. If we have any notes here, we can add them here, or we can press save and continue. Now you'll see the inspection form is totally complete. We have green check marks all the way through. It says inspection complete at the bottom, and we can even double check that by going to the Maplestreet dashboard. All right, on the Maplestreet dashboard, we're just going to refresh really fast. And then we're going to see this green check mark for July through December. Click into it. We'll see the signature. We'll see that we removed one sample location, so now we only have this SP one. And then we have my photo that I added. And so now we know that this observation is completed.
Great. So as I mentioned, we want you to be sure, one, it's a permit requirement. You need to be doing an observation form when you take your sample. And two, it's also how you communicate to Maplestreet that data is on the way. It's also how you communicate, throughout your company that you are completing these sampling events. So, managers can come in and see those.
I'm going to walk.
And so now we're going to hear from Celine talking about seeing your sample data in Maplestreet.
Through the sample results section. From your Maplestreet site dashboard, scroll down to Records, click on Stormwater Sampling Results, and you'll see a high-level overview of your current parameters for the current stormwater year. Click this Expand button, and you'll see at the top all the different sample events. These sample events are triggered by the sample observation form, which must be completed in order for us to add sample results to this section. Scroll down to see each of your parameters with all of the necessary information listed underneath. If you would like assistance uploading your sample results to Mapistry and Smarts, please have your lab CC lab@mapistry.com on all sample results emails. They should also include PDFs and EDD or electronic deliverable copies of your stormwater sample results when they send to us the sample results. Please note that your team must complete the sample observation, like I mentioned before we can upload your data to Mapistry. Once your data is uploaded to Mapistry, we'll send you an email and you'll be able to view it by coming in here. You can always edit your data and press save. If you want to download your data, you can download it by clicking on this button. It'll download a zip file that you can upload to Smarts.
So yeah, as Celine said, if you can have your lab copy lab@mapistry.com on your sample results, and then we can get those set up in Mapistry for you. So with that, we're going to move on to your stormwater pollution prevention plan. So it's your plan. It is how you are communicating to the state and really to the public, because it's publicly available, how your site is meeting the permit requirements. Some key components of it that really we need, one, to make sure we're keeping current. Two, are your pollution prevention team. It's also going to talk about where you sample and what you sample for and your best management practices. And again, it's understood and accepted that this is a living document, that sites are dynamic, that we are going to be revisiting this plan regularly. And so we're going to show you next, Julia's going to show how to keep that SWIP up to date using the Mapistry SWIP builder.
In this video, we're going to cover how to update your SWIP, or Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, in Mapistry using Mapistry's SWIP builder. In our SWIP builder, you can enter and update information in different fields within the tool, and then once your updates are made, download a new PDF SWIP document that reflects those changes. So within the site dashboard of the site I want to update the SWIP for, I'm going to scroll to the bottom to this Stormwater SWIP records section. I'm going to click on this edit pencil to start editing. So for this example, let's say that I need to update my sweeping BMP because we used to sweep monthly, but now we sweep weekly. So I want my SWIP to reflect that change. I'm going to, within this editing page, scroll down to the section where my BMPs are, so I can see that's 3.2 BMPs, or best management practices, and I'm going to click on sweeping. I can see that it says monthly, but now I need to change this to weekly. And I can also update any of these other fields if I needed to, but right now I only need to update the frequency to weekly. So I'm going to save that change. If there are any other sections that you need to update, you can click into them or go from one to the next by clicking this next section button. If you add attachments to your SWIP in this attachment section, it will add a page to your PDF download either as a placeholder for you to insert a separate document, or it will just display the text that you type into this text box. Now that I'm done making the update I wanted to make, I'm going to go to this certification section and change this date to today's date, because this is the date of the most updated SWIP. And I'm going to save that. Now, I can download my updated SWIP from this page by clicking this download button here, but I actually need to go back and add this change as an update to my SWIP amendment log. So to do that, I'm going to click on this exit button back to the main site dashboard. Again, scroll down to the Stormwater SWIP section, and to add an update to my SWIP amendment log, you're going to click this plus button. So I had actually already started one before this to save time, but you'll see the same fields. So here I just summarized the update I just did, which was updating my sweeping BMP because now we sweep weekly instead of monthly. And I can provide a reason, my name, and the section we updated, which was that section in table 3.2. If you upload your SWIP to a regulatory agency, you can put the date that it was uploaded here as well. So I'm going to save that. And now I can also download my complete SWIP by clicking on this download button. So this SWIP that I updated, now I just opened this file. I can see that it has today's date. When I scroll down, I can see my amendment log. So this is the amendment log that I just added. And when I go to section 3.2, which is where my BMPs are described, I can see that my sweeping now has been updated to weekly implementation. Before I'm done, I want to make sure that my PDF document is complete with everything that I might need to have in my SWIP. So I still need to add my site map, and you could also add your chain of custody form or like a operation and maintenance document. So here I know I need to add my SWIP sitemap. So I'm going to drag and drop those. In typical PDF editors, you can do something similar. I had also had an attachment at the end for my treatment system O&M document. So I'm going to drop that there. And maybe I also have a chain of custody form that I want to include a copy of in my SWIP. So I'm going to save that. And that's pretty much it. Now it's ready for you to upload to your regulatory agency. And I also like to upload a copy of it to this document section just in case. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Julia, for preparing that for us. Just wanted to hit on again, your SWIP is considered a living document. So as things change at your site, you want to be sure to keep your SWIP up to date. It's also a public document, so it's posted to where your regulatory agencies, the state board can see it, as well as your regional board, your city, local city stormwater group can go grab it and download it if they want. If they opened up that SWIP and like walked onto your site, would it make sense? Are they seeing what's in the SWIP reflected on your site? If not, it's time to update your SWIP. Minor updates can be kind of maintained at your site, but if there's some real differences between what's publicly available and what's going on at your site, it's time to get a new SWIP uploaded into Smarts. We're going to jump into, which is kind of a nice segue into these reporting requirements. So again, in California, all of our reporting is done in that Smarts database, this Stormwater Multiple Application Reporting Tracking System. And this is publicly, it makes everything you put in there publicly available. So the things, and then also you're required, you're required to keep everything for 5 years. We keep it in Maplestreet. There's also, any of your forms that you're doing in Maplestreet, you can download from the Maplestreet dashboard too, if you want the PDF copies, or if you want to print them out. You can export stuff from the Maplestreet database as well. So things that go into Smarts, your sampling events are called ad hoc reports in Smarts. So when you get like an email from Mapistry or an email from Smart saying like your ad hoc report, go certify your ad hoc report, we're talking about your sampling data. They need to be submitted within 30 days of receiving the results from the lab. And they also then need to be certified by your legally responsible person or duly authorized representative. If your legally responsible person is too busy to certify stormwater documents, look into that duly authorized representative option under the permit and add somebody else in there who can certify these results. It is a permit requirement to have them certified within 30 days of receiving it from the lab. You're going to do an annual comprehensive evaluation each year. So we're going to talk about there's two things that go on here at the end of the year: annual comprehensive evaluation, annual report. The annual comprehensive evaluation is like a super duper monthly inspection, where in addition to doing all of your monthly inspections, you're going to sit down and ask yourself, did I do all of my monthly inspections this year? You're going to take an even more critical look at all of your industrial activities. If you have drainage areas that you previously have identified as no exposure, which means there's no activity, industrial activity that could pollute from that area, if it had been previously identified as no exposure, you need to walk over to that area and confirm that it still meets that no exposure criteria. If you have, you want to do an inspection of the equipment that you need to implement your BMPs. Again, you're doing this monthly, but a very thorough check of your BMPs, anything needing to be maintained, replaced, or maybe just time to consider a new BMP. And then again, review the effectiveness of those BMPs. And then, the lovely catch-all, is there anything else I need to do to be in compliance with this permit? And then that annual evaluation, that stays as part of your on-site records. Then you go into Smarts and you file your annual report. The annual report is a yes/no checklist about whether or not you were in compliance with the permit over the past year. Falsifying documents is a violation of the permit. It is actually criminally enforceable. So if you were not in compliance with the permit last year, you need to document that here and describe it, really in the best possible light. Talk about what happened, how you fixed it, and how you'll never, ever, ever do it again. So your annual report is your opportunity to, come clean and say yes, no, where exactly I was and was not in compliance with the permit over the past year. One of the things we see regularly in lawsuits is people calling BS on annual reports that say everything is right year after year. So if you know something went wrong, again, you document it, you document what happened, what you did, and how you promise you'll never ever do it again. So I like that. What can the public see? Well, the public can see your annual report. The public can see your sampling data. In California, all of this started with the construction permit in 2010, and really the industrial permit moved to everybody public in 2015, again, with all the sampling data going public. We see this as a nationwide trend. All states are supposed to be have public reporting by 2020. So they can see, again, your sampling data. They can see your SWIPs, your site maps, your annual reports. If an agency issued you a violation or corrective action, that agency posts it to SMART. So now everybody can see that slap on the wrist you got. If you're in like a litigation case, they may require you to upload the copy of the consent decree to SMART so that it's publicly available. So with that, there are a lot of things you are required to upload to SMART. You are not required to upload your monthly inspections. You are not required to upload pictures you took of your site on your monthly inspection. So definitely recommend keeping it to the minimum, to only what is required to be uploaded, because really anything else can and will be used against you. So with that, we're going to jump over. Maya is going to show off the analytics dashboard and how you can use that in Maplestreet to kind of keep tabs on how everything's going across your program. And a lot of our sites use this analytics dashboard as a really fast way to check and do those like annual reports. So you can quickly see, did all of my inspections get done, and get some of those answers to those annual reports questions. So let me jump over to Maya here.
Keeping an eye on your data throughout the year is a key practice to stay on top of compliance issues and risks. To do this within Mapistry, we're going to start by clicking through the Analytics tab on the left corner of the brand bar. Here, you'll have 3 dashboards: inspections, tasks, and logs. When you first click into it, it's going to take you straight to data for inspections. And on the right-hand side, we'll have a set of filters that we can play around with and reflect the data within the visualizations below. Let's say I wanted to look at stormwater data for the last 90 days. To do that, I'm going to click into Category, open up the drop list, and select Stormwater. I'm also going to open up Due Date and click Last 90 days. Now I'm going to hit the Update button on the top right corner. This is refreshing my visualizations so I can see the related data from my filters. If I wanted to drill in, all I have to do is click on the number or the part of the chart that I'm interested in. Let's say I wanted to take a look at the inspection that's upcoming but not completed just yet. I clicked into that one, and now we're going to have a chart of that inspection form. We're able to see the site that it's tied to, the status, which is incomplete, and even a link to the form submission itself. If I wanted to download these visualizations, I can either click on the individual chart itself and click Download Data, or I can go up to the dashboard actions on the top right corner and click Download. The second one is going to download a copy of all the visualizations from this screen. Going into tasks, one handy way to keep an eye on tasks is by making sure your facilities are continuously rating and completing tasks throughout the year. This way, you're able to show progress made, because we know all sites are not perfect. If I click into my 3 tasks past due, I can also highlight the assignees that have been lacking the completion according to the due dates. And it's an easy way for me to identify who might need some extra help. Another place that you can go into to check out data for your stormwater program will be in your admin page on the top icon. Here, we're able to drill down how facilities are set for parameters, whether they're in level 1, level 2, or within limit. Under your sampling results tab, you're able to see more handy charts about the data itself. For example, my Maplestreet stormwater demo site is having issues with oil and grease. This is shown by 33.3% of exceedance in my samples. And if I click onto my results scatter plot, I can check out which sample was giving me the most issues and how it was tracking over time. Utilizing your org admin and your analytics tabs are going to be great tools as you monitor the stormwater program throughout the year.
Great. Thanks, Maya, for showing us the analytics dashboard and the org admin. The analytics dashboard is a newer feature on Mapistry, so if you're not seeing it on your Mapistry dashboard, again, be sure to reach out to the help at mapistry.com and we'll make sure that that is turned on for you. And so we've got about 15 minutes left. We're definitely going to end on time, don't worry. The next few things we're going to talk about are numeric action level exceedances, and then kind of talk a little bit about enforcement and litigation trends. So last poll for you guys, I want to know what best describes your ERA level status at your site. So is everything in baseline? You've never had exceedances? Do you have some parameters in level 1? Have you moved into level 2 for a parameter? Or do you have kind of both, some in level 1, some in level 2? So let me know what your sites, I just kind of want to hear what best describes your ERA status at your site. I don't know if people are getting tired for the end of the day. We're a little slower to respond, or if this is just a tough question. So we'll give Vinny last response. Does anybody else want to chime in? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close it. Share the results. So we got a mix. Some of you are in baseline, some of you are on level 1, and then some of you have kind of both going on. So we're gonna cover quickly what this all means, how you move in and out of levels, what requirements change when you change these levels. We'll kind of go through that quickly here. First thing I want to say and make clear is an NAL exceedance is not a violation of the permit. It is, the NALs are just benchmarks to say whether or not you should be taking extra action. So that exceedance, it feels scary, but it really just means it's time to take a harder look and see what else we're supposed to be doing. So the permit had everybody start in baseline, and then if you have these annual or instantaneous exceedances, you move up first into level 1 and then into level 2, and then you have additional requirements to do as a result of those exceedances. So the first place you move if you have an exceedance is level 1. So this is the first time you've exceeded the parameter NAL. If you do have that NAL exceedance, the first thing you have to do is get a qualified industrial stormwater practitioner to do an evaluation of your site. This can be a consultant, this can be a train. If you have somebody at your site that's really passionate into stormwater, they can do the statewide training and become a QISP themselves. But you need to have an evaluation by a ISP by October 1st. And then that evaluation is going to talk about what likely caused or contributed to the exceedance, and what you're going to do to try and mitigate that going forward. And you need to prepare this report by January 1st of the following year. The permit emphasizes that level 1 is focused again on non-structural BMPs. It's just coming back to those minimum BMPs. Is there anything that we need to pay more attention to going forward? Are we not, do we have a spill that we didn't clean up fast enough that caused an exceedance? Are we not really doing what we can to minimize exposure of pollutants? Was somebody, working during the rain that maybe shouldn't have been? So the focus is really on emphasizing that all of those minimum BMPs and non-structural BMPs are utilized to their fullest extent. And then if you have ever exceeded the NAL for pH, congratulations, you get to use a pH meter forever, I guess, maybe until a new permit comes out. And then level 2 reports. So if you exceed that same parameter in a subsequent year, so if you were in level 1, you exceed again, you move to level 2. Level 2, 2 reports. The first is the action plan. So similar to what you did in level 1, again, look around what could have caused this, and then why is it still exceeding, and then come up with a plan to address that. Usually that plan is going to be adding more BMPs. There are some other options about saying, no, this is non-industrial, or no, this is natural, but really most of the plans are going to involve adding more BMPs. And then you have a year to kind of implement and test those BMPs. So that's why you do the action plan. And then a year later is the technical report saying whether or not those BMPs worked. If you're in level 2, if you can kind of continue on in level 2, you want to kind of just continue looking, is there more we can do to bring these parameters back down? Returning to baseline, so you can return to baseline after filing your level 2 technical report if you're level 2, or in level 1 or level 2 if you have 4 consecutive samples under the NAL. So if 4 samples in a row average out to be less than the NAL, you will move back to baseline. So we talked about sample reports being due within 30 days. We want to make sure each sampling event is submitted in SMARTS as a separate event because of this 4 consecutive sample kind of get back to baseline rule. And then finally, we're going to just talk about, kind of everything we've covered today is like how you comply with this permit to avoid penalties and damages. The most kind of common alleged violations are inadequate or missing BMPs. As we saw, the list of minimum BMPs, the detailed and the nuance in there, like are we minimizing track out? It's easy for somebody to try and point at you and say, like, are you really minimizing? So BMPs, missing or inadequate BMPs is usually one of the largest things they go after. Monitoring program, that's usually missed samples. So if you have a site with a BMP that reduces or prevents discharge, you want to make sure that that is documented well in your SWIP, that you have these BMPs that reduce or minimize discharge. The next one is effluent exceedances. So this is, again, the NAL exceedance is not a permit violation. What the third-party lawsuits will try and say is, well, there's like downstream receiving waters that have limitations. Usually those are a bit of a stretch. If your site is subject to TMDLs, a few of you are, then there are potential to have effluent exceedances of those. And then an inadequate SWIP. Again, this idea, can somebody take a copy of your SWIP and SWIP map and match it up to what's going on your site? So those are some of the more common ones. Annual reports, usually like a late annual report. So make sure you get your reports in on time. Make sure you're doing what's required of in the permit. Make sure you're doing what it says you're doing in your SWIP, and you should be in really good shape for this upcoming stormwater year. So with that, cool, gonna wrap up on time. We will be sending a copy of today's webinar recording out to you afterwards, as well as copies of the slides. If you have any questions that you didn't get a chance to ask on today's call, be sure to follow up with us at help@mapistry.com. And then finally, the handouts. There was copies of the handouts sent in the sign up for today. There's copies in the webinar. And then we will, and then you've got your cheat sheet to post and optional supplemental worksheets to see, if you have trouble answering any of those, let us know. So with that, I just want to say thank you and remind you we are here for you at help@mapistry.com. Hal, I see some of your questions. I will follow up with you afterwards. Thank you everybody for joining us.